Ha ha ha, you thought you got away with one, but you didn't.
Get away with what?
Sorry, that was a fifth grader. I'm sure you understand. So, earlier today we were talking about rational numbers and how we can apply them to real life situations. Well, let's do some more of that in this magical video called Rational Numbers. So, as you can see, this printer, which looks like a doozy, prints 300 pages in 10 minutes. We're going to call this printer Printer 1. What you don't see is a second printer that prints 40% more pages in 10 minutes. So we'll call that one Printer 2. And that prints 40% more pages in 12 minutes. Now, I want you to figure out, or I should say what we want to figure out, is which printer prints the fastest. Well, the first thing we need to do is take a look at our first printer. Right now we know that it prints 300 pages in 10 minutes. So what do you think we could do to figure out how many pages it prints per minute? Ah, that's correct. Nice job, Valerie. We need to make a unit rate. So let's take a look at the information. If it prints 300 pages in 10 minutes, we're able to create a ratio, 300 pages to 10 minutes. Now, let's take a look at our numbers and turn this into a unit rate. So to do that, we need to do 300 divided by 10. So let's do that. 300 divided by 10. 10 goes into 30 3 times. And that leaves us with 0. So now we have 300 pages for every 1 minute. Or we could say, not 300 pages, excuse me, 30 pages for every 1 minute, or 30 pages per minute. So we have successfully transformed that into a unit rate. So let's go back. And we can say Printer 1 is 30 pages per minute. Now we need to figure out how many pages Printer 2 prints per minute. So let's take our information and figure that out. So the first thing we need to look at is that Printer 2 prints 40% more pages in 12 minutes. So how can we figure out 40% more than 300? Well, let's figure out what 40% of 300 is. So 300 times 40% as a fraction is 0.4. Let's see, 4 times 0 is 0, 4 times 0 is 0, 4 times 3 is 12, and we have that 1 decimal place. So 40% of 300 is 120, so 40% more would be 120 plus 300, which would be 420 pages. So now we know that Printer 2 prints 420 pages for every 12 minutes. And we've created our second rate. Let's turn this into a unit rate. So we need to divide 420 by 12. 12 goes into 42 3 times, which is 36. And when we subtract that, we get 60. 12 goes into 65 times. So our unit rate's going to be 35 pages for every minute. So we know that Printer 2 prints 35 pages per minute. So, Colleen, let me ask you a question. If printer 1 prints 30 pages per minute and printer 2 prints 35 pages per minute, which printer is faster, Colleen? Is that printer 1 or printer 2? Yay! Nice job, Colleen. All right, so now that we figured out the printer dilemma, let's take a look at this nutrition facts label. Now, I'm sure you've seen these before on different products that you have purchased. And this tells you all of the nutritional information that is within whatever you are consuming. Now, the reference daily intake, or the RDI, determines how much of each of these items, meaning fat, cholesterol, sodium, carbohydrates, protein, and the vitamins that we see here, you should consume each day. Now, up in this top section, you can see that there is the actual amount that each of these items is contained within your product, as well as the percentage that you should receive every day. But if you look at the vitamins, it only shows the percentages. So what we're going to try to figure out is how much of these vitamins you are actually consuming. Now, the first thing we need to take a look at is how much you're supposed to consume in an entire day. So let's look at calcium for a moment. The RDI says you should consume 1,000 milligrams of calcium. Now, if we were to look at our label here, it shows us that we consume 23% of our calcium in this product that we're supposed to have each day. So if we want to know how much of that, how much calcium we're actually consuming, what we can do is a little bit of rounding here. So 23% is pretty close to 25%, which is what we would round it to, since 25% is one of those percentages that's easy to work with. 25% is also the same as a quarter. So if we figure out what a quarter of 1,000 milligrams is, we have figured out how much calcium we have consumed. So we would say 1/4 of, or times 1,000, and that's going to equal, well, if we put 1,000 over 1, we can cross cancel. 4 goes into both 4 and 1,000. It goes into 1,250 times. So we have consumed 250 milligrams of calcium. All right, we're going to take a look at thing. And this is something that always involves rational numbers and lots of different types of rational numbers. And what we're going to talk about today is shopping. It's something we all enjoy doing, at least most of the time. So, I don't know if you know, but there are many people here who enjoy shopping. Like one person in this room whose initials are KC. And KC loves shoes. They're the best. And KC went into a shoe store called the Shoe Department. And in the shoe department, she saw an awesome pair of kicks that were 35% off of their original price, which was $49.95. Now, the problem that arose was that KC was in Maine, shopping the Kittery outlets. And unfortunately, in Maine, there's something called a sales tax. And the tax in Maine was 7.75%. So 7 and 75 hundredths of a percent. Now, KC had 10 bucks, 30 bucks in her pocket and was wondering if she was going to have enough money to purchase these new kicks. So let's see if KC did have enough money. So when we're dealing with all these different types of numbers, and we're dealing with an estimate of how much something's going to cost, we need to do some estimating. So first off, let's look at our 35%. 35% is a pretty easy percentage to work with on its own, but since we're estimating, let's estimate it to an even easier one, which would be 40%. So let's take that 35%, and we're going to estimate it to 40% and change it to a decimal. So 40% as a decimal is going to be 0.4. The next thing we want to estimate is the $49.95. Now, if we estimate that, that's going to be $50. So if we want to find out what 40% off of 50 would be, is we need to multiply these two numbers together and subtract from the $50. So 0.4 times 50, let's see what that's going to be. 50 times 0.4, 0, 20, and we put in our decimal point, so it's going to be $20 off. So if we subtract the $20 from our $50, it's going to mean the shoes right now cost $30. So right now, KC is in the clear. She could buy these kicks. But unfortunately, there's a sales tax involved, which is a little over 7%. So what we want to do is go ahead and estimate this to an easier percentage to work with. So let's estimate this to 10% and multiply that by $30 to see what our tax is going to be. So if we take 30 and multiply it by 0.1, that's going to equal $3, which is roughly the tax we're going to have to pay. So if we add that to our price, then we're looking at a grand total of about $33, which unfortunately won't be enough for KC to pay. All right. I think I'll go pretty easy on you. Why don't you just do page 328 to 329, 5 through 17 odds. All right, thank you and have a great day.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.